All right, so now knowing a little bit about the access modifiers, here is really how we would want to change our class. So this is this person class we've been working with. We said that it is generally a good idea to declare all of your methods as public, right? And we're going to change our variables to private. We're going to want to make this change and just get in the habit of 9 times out of 10, anytime you declare a variable, we're going to make it private. Because again, we want to control who and what has access to our variables. Okay, well, that's great, Mr. P. That sounds wonderful. But now, what's going to happen now when I try to now use all of this here? In fact, if I compile this, sorry, get that error to go away. When I compile this now, it should, I think it's upset about this for a second for some reason. It should, there you go. It should have a problem now trying to access name because name has private access. Here's the example of we cannot directly touch p1.name from the main program because it has been declared as a private variable. All right, P, that's great. But what are we going to do now? We need to be able to access the variables, or we want to be able to touch the variables. We want to be able to get the value out of the variable. So we're going to have to make another change to our class. And how we're going to do this is we're going to add a couple of methods to our class. Okay. There are two types of methods that we're going to add. It's not really a method type, but maybe it is a different method purpose. I'll say that, a method purpose. We first will add some methods here called an accessor method. All right. If we need to get the value in the variable, we can declare a method that basically all it does is go and get me the value out of that variable. So we'll call it an accessor method. We're going to access the variable. The other term that's used is called a get method. We're just going to get the value out. And it literally can be as simple as this. The method will be public because we are going to want to call this from the main program. It'll be a value returning method because it's going to want to give me back the value from the variable. And quite honestly, I often just call them get and then the name of the variable. Get sales, get name, get breed, get age, whatever you want. I just call them get and whatever. It's just easier to understand that. And the only code that's in the whole method is basically return the value that's in the variable you're looking for. That's it. So it's kind of a workaround. It's an end around to directly touching the variable. I'm going to be able to call a method that has access to the variable. Right? If I go back to my program here for a second, right? We said that anything that goes on inside the class, right? All this code inside the class does in fact have access to the instance variables. When we make them private, we just stop access from happening outside of the class. So it's totally okay for print person to use all these variables here. It's fine because it's inside the class. It's not okay for this method, this variable called directly. That's not okay because it's private. If we were to define the accessor method, well, now we have a way to get in to that sales variable and get the value out. Right? Let's call it an accessor method or a get method. So now when we declare classes, we're actually going to want to declare an accessor method to complement each variable you have there. So yeah, your class is going to start to build in code as we go along. Okay. The second category of method we're going to define here is going to be called a mutator method. A mutator method will allow you to change the data in a private instance variable. I'd like to pass a new value in, or I'd like to be able to set that value. So we're going to call it a mutator method, or more commonly known as a set method. I want to change the value. And here, literally, it could be something as simple as this, right? The only thing this method is going to do is change the value in the variable. So it's going to be a void method where you don't have to give anything back to the program. I will often just call the method set and the name of the variable. So we had get sales and set sales. I'm okay with that. And we're going to need to have the parameter in there. And this will be the value coming in to replace the value in the variable. And then literally all we're going to do is take the value that's in P and assign it to the variable we're trying to touch here called sales. That's it. So it's a short little method, one line, one major line of code to either be able to get the value out of the variable or put the value into the variable. All right. So let's go back to our class for a second. So if I'm going to do this now, I really am going to want to do this. Public, let's see, string, get name. So there is the accessor method for the string variable. And I will do there you go. So these would be two examples of an accessor method and a mutator method. Another shortcut I'll give you is that often the parameter names, I don't try to go too crazy with the parameter names. I oftentimes, especially for the mutator methods, I will typically just name them the first letter of the variable I'm trying to touch. So that we can do just, here's the n, it's name n coming in, take the value from the parameter and then assign it to the name variable, and we're done. You really can call this whatever you want. I think it's just easier in these two particular methods. Let's just call it by the first initial, the first letter of the name, if that's possible. I think that's just easier. Okay, so this is going to be our model going forward. Anytime you make a class, right? A, the instance variable should be declared as private variables. B, all of the methods should be declared as public methods. And then C, for every instance variable you have up here, it's probably a good idea to have a corresponding accessor method and a mutator method, or get method and a set method for each one of them. Not a lot of code, but this is going to help us maybe maintain that access to the variables and access to the methods.